Okay, guys, this is how I mix colors. You can see. So, firstly, I have to mix hue color, um, a gray color or ash color. Firstly, so I used to make different tones of gray or ash, let's say gray color. So I make um deep gray, middle gray, light gray. Yeah. So as you see, I'm making medium gray. Yeah. I use small concoal to mix these colors. Um as time goes on, you understand what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do. Yeah. So I just watch what how the picture looks so that I can mix the colors. Yeah. So for you artists, you see, you have to look. Yeah. I add small water to it so that it can make it softer. So what if I bought the paint? Um, it is thick, so I have to add water to it so that I can make it softer. So you have to mix I have to use some stick or your brush to stir it so that it will not be some be thicker and some will be lighter. It will be yeah. Don't mind my family um as I'm doing they were disturbing, but I was just focusing what I'm doing. Junior. So yeah, comment below if you don't understand anything about what I was doing.
Yo, mama, you.
Kaki bila dana ba din tashi an sai shana. Wait.
No, that's what I was showing.
Ah, what's na on to ogunsi.
What about my phone?
Na wa ni na on show. Ya mu mutu. Ah, what's on to ogunsi ade implement.
Ma.
Ade na yin fi o mo sa won to atalena.
That's it. I saw the review.
Never saw my most on something.
Ayin fi o mo sa won to so dey am fa so better. Nti wo si make wo mo na say wo say. When I was with him. That father so when you want to see am. Na me cho say ya fa bet na yes ade na wo dey wo dey no ho esi na ko. Sana me cho so me ni ma fe bi kwamba.
The offensive charge.
iPhone charger.
Qualquer que eu acho não bom de só.
Who back to me? Adding keys. You see, adding keys. Adding keys. You see, adding keys. Adding keys. You see, adding keys. Adding keys. Ufilisika na umfele na mbebya mwosa na ya wani wote. will pass out the cake when I'm starting cook. Boy, with the men coming a break. A brain and two my cried and being the thing to turning time. China film wa. Men I may walk but to Muntia Massima, for Massam corner aboarding. And yes, for a day so. The Biami war also tonight one wording. Or then the Biami was. Yes, we do. Yes.
Bluetooth mode.
The neurotransmitter acts by allowing electron-snatching calcium ions into the cell, and they create free radicals. Without enough antioxidants on patrol, the free radicals punch holes in the walls, and the cell can rupture and die. Out at the dendrites, there's trouble too. If the branches stew too long in the out-of-balance broth of chronic stress, they pull back in an effort to keep the cell from dying, like a turtle retracting its head, according to McEwen. And because growth factors and serotonin aren't flowing, the process of neurogenesis is interrupted. The new stem cells that are born every day don't turn into new neurons. So there's a shortage of building material to reroute signals and break the cycle. Monica Starkman at the University of Michigan studies Cushing's syndrome, an endocrine dysfunction in which the body is continually flooded with cortisol. The scientific name for the disorder speaks volumes: hypercortisolism. Its symptoms are eerily similar to those of chronic stress: weight gain around the midsection, breaking down muscle tissue to produce unnecessary glucose and then fat, insulin resistance, and possibly diabetes, panic attacks, anxiety, depression, and increased risk of heart disease. One of the many correlations Starkman has shown is that the extent of hippocampal shrinkage and memory loss is directly proportional to elevations in cortisol. While chronic stress is bullying the hippocampus, pruning its dendrites, killing its neurons, and preventing neurogenesis, the amygdala is having a field day. The stress overload creates more connections in the amygdala, which keeps firing and calling for cortisol, even though there's plenty of the hormone available, and the negative situation feeds on itself. The more the amygdala fires, the stronger it gets. Eventually, the amygdala takes control of its partnership with the hippocampus, repressing the context, and thus the connection to reality, and branding the memory with fear. The stress becomes generalized, and the feeling becomes a free-floating sense of fear that morphs into anxiety. It's as if everything is a stressor, and this colors perception and leads to even more stress. The animal becomes more anxious even while its cognitive skills are being eroded, says McEwen. When you suffer from chronic stress, you lose the capacity to compare the situation to other memories, or to recall that you can grab a jump rope and immediately relieve the stress, or that you have friends to talk to, or that it's not the end of the world. Positive and realistic thoughts become less accessible. And eventually, brain chemistry can shift toward anxiety or depression. Chronic stress isn't the only cause of anxiety and depression, and it doesn't necessarily lead to either of those disorders. But it is clearly at the root of much of our woe, both physiologically and psychologically. And I'll be returning to the biology of chronic stress throughout the coming chapters. In a way, the fact that chronic stress underlies many of our problems is great news, because we know that how we respond to stress dramatically affects what it does to our bodies and minds. Most of our evolution took place when we were hunter-gatherers. And while there's nothing we can do about that, there is something we can do with that knowledge. As McEwen writes in The End of Stress as We Know It, it's not inevitable or normal for the very system designed to protect us to become a threat in itself. The science of turning it off. You know by now that the function of the brain is to transmit information from one synapse to the other, and that this requires energy. Likewise, since exercise influences metabolism, it serves as a powerful way to influence synaptic function, and thus the way we think and feel. Throughout the body, exercise increases blood flow and the availability of glucose, the essentials for cell life. More blood carries more oxygen, which the cells need to convert glucose to ATP and feed themselves. The brain shifts blood flow from the frontal cortex to the middle brain, home to the structures we've talked so much about, the amygdala and hippocampus. This mode of prioritizing might explain why researchers have found that higher cognitive functions are impaired during intense exercise. It's what happens after exercise that optimizes the brain. In addition to raising the fight or flight threshold, it kickstarts the cellular recovery process I've described. Exercise increases the efficiency of intercellular energy production, allowing neurons to meet fuel demands without increasing toxic oxidative stress. We do get waste buildup, but we also get the enzymes that chew it up. Not to mention a janitorial service that disposes of broken bits of DNA and other byproducts of normal cellular use and aging, both of which are thought to help prevent the onset of cancer and neurodegeneration. And while exercise induces the stress response, if the activity isn't extreme, it shouldn't flood the system with cortisol. One of the ways exercise optimizes energy usage is by triggering the production of more receptors for insulin. In the body, having more receptors means better use of blood glucose and stronger cells. Best of all, the receptors stay there, which means that newfound efficiency gets built in. If you exercise regularly and the population of insulin receptors increases, if there's a drop in blood sugar or blood flow, the cell will still be able to squeeze enough glucose out of the bloodstream to keep working. Also, exercise increases IGF-1, which helps insulin manage glucose levels. In the brain, IGF-1 doesn't have as much to do with getting energy into the cells as it does with regulating glucose throughout the body. What's fascinating is that in the hippocampus, IGF-1 increases LTP, neuroplasticity, and neurogenesis. It's another way exercise helps our neurons bind. Exercise also produces FGF2 and VEGF, which build new capillaries and expand the vascular system in the brain. More and bigger highways means more efficient blood flow. At the same time, aerobic exercise increases BDNF production. Taken all together, these factors combine forces to make the brain bloom and prevent the damaging effects of chronic stress from taking hold. In addition to cranking up the cellular repair mechanisms, they also keep cortisol in check and increase the levels of our regulatory neurotransmitters, serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine. On a mechanical level, exercise relaxes the resting tension of muscle spindles, which breaks the stress feedback loop of the brain. If the body isn't stressed, the brain figures maybe it can relax too. Over time, regular exercise also increases the efficiency of the cardiovascular system, lowering blood pressure. Cardiologists have recently discovered that a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, which is produced by muscle tissue in the heart, directly tempers the body's stress response by putting the brakes on the HPA axis and quelling noise in the brain.
Before.
What's so interesting about AMP is that it increases as the heart rate increases during exercise, thus illustrating another pathway by which physical activity relieves both the feeling of stress and the body's response to it. The stress of exercise is predictable and controllable because you're initiating the action. And these two variables are key to psychology. With exercise, you gain a sense of mastery and self-confidence. As you develop awareness of your own ability to manage stress and not rely on negative coping mechanisms, you increase your ability to snap out of it, so to speak. You learn to trust that you can deal with it, an extremely important factor for my patient Susan. By jumping rope, she inhibits the feeling of stress and the runaway brain activity that can go along with it. Knowing my brain chemistry, that is the best for me, Susan says. It's my motivation to get out there. Once I'm in a good place, that motivation is easier. Jumping rope almost turns into a need. Susan has the level of understanding I hope to instill in everyone who hears this audio program. At every level, from the microcellular to the psychological, exercise not only wards off the ill effects of chronic stress, it can also reverse them. Studies show that if researchers exercise rats that have been chronically stressed, that activity makes the hippocampus grow back to its pre-shriveled state. The mechanisms by which exercise changes how we think and feel are so much more effective than diets, medicine, and wine. When you say you feel less stressed out after you go for a swim, even if it's a walk, you are. What protects the mind protects the body. Bob was stressed out. It was 1969. He had finished his medical residency, and he was just out of the Navy, where he debriefed shell-shocked soldiers sent directly from Vietnam to his base in Boston.